Some people in this world are on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil, and some, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel.
And I'm Nicole Kral. You may have heard us as we worked on stories and series about law enforcement and crime. And it's safe to say we've seen some of the best and worst of human nature.
We decided there's no greater honor than bringing you the stories of the men and women who seek out the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who put the pieces together on some of the biggest Mississippi crime stories of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Hey everybody, welcome to Investigation Homicide. I am Therese Apel, your host. I also have my co-host, Nicole Kral, here with me tonight.
Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday.
We have a special guest for you tonight. Every time we bring in one of these JPD guys, you guys love it, so we're going to go ahead and invite you to make comments, to ask questions. But of course, we have Hinds County Sheriff Tyree Jones, who is currently also the interim Jackson Police Chief as that chief search goes on. Chief Sheriff, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Good to be back with you all again.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about a 2007 case. This is one that Sheriff Jones worked as a detective at Jackson Police Department. We've talked with him before about those years. But Nicole, back me up here. Every time we have one of these old school JPD guys on here, people love to hear from them.
Yeah, they do. I looked at Tyree when you said old school JPD.
Hey, it is what it is.
You are like one of the OGs. We always hear such good, you're like baseline.
Yeah.
Where it all started, at least where I where my timeline starts.
Yeah. I've been called the OG a few times. Myself, along with some others now.
Yeah,
right.
And I feel like with 2007 is one of those years where you're like, oh, that was just a couple years ago, and then you're like, shit.
No.
That was not a couple years ago. That was 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and for what it's worth, okay, so you may be kind of OG, but we just had Charlie Smith on the show, and he's the OG of OGs.
Y'all had Charlie Smith? I missed that.
Yeah,
Charlie is a recurring character on our podcast now.
Yeah.
Man, listen, Charlie Smith was he was my very first supervisor when I graduated the police academy. And man, the stories I could share with you all.
Oh, wow, I bet.
But he was one of the best supervisors that I've ever had. And he had the mindset of take care of your people. And that's exactly what he did for us. So kudos to Charlie Smith, his family, his son, which I communicate with pretty often. They're just good people, and they still good fun people also.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's been on, 3 or 4 times
I was gonna
now.
say 4.
Yeah, and comes in and tells us these old stories that people have forgotten about. But it's so good because it kind of reminds you of that to me, history is just as important, and we'll get into some of that today.
That's right. That's right.
So, okay, we've talked to you before about kind of your ascension through JPD and that kind of thing. But in 2007, where were you in your career? You were a detective, but how long had you been there and that kind of thing?
I was a detective in robbery homicide in 2007. I had been in that unit for probably a little bit over 3 years at that point. I got promoted to that unit from the DEA task force, where I had been working a special assignment for a while. And I went to robbery homicide. I think I might have been 25, 26 years old when I first went. So had been there, was still getting some good experience, but of course I had pretty much latched on to the concept of the division, working alongside the great men and women that were in that division with me back then also.
So walk us through, I mean, obviously every case starts with a call. Where were you when you got the call on this? Do you remember? Do you remember how this started?
I remember it was a morning. It was, I think it was kind of chilly that morning. And I remember us responding to the call down off of Mill Street near maybe a vacant building or a business down in that area. The fire department was there, and of course, patrol was there, and there had been what appeared to be a small fire in this particular vicinity also. And that's when we learned that a victim had been discovered that was wrapped up in a blanket, and of course uh, been he had been set on fire. We figured that the fire actually started at this particular location due to the manifest, but we at that particular time did not know where the death actually occurred. We didn't believe that the death occurred there. We believed that this was possibly the transfer from another, what we would consider a primary crime scene to a secondary crime scene. My partner at the time was Fort Heyman,
Yeah.
great guy and one of the best partners I could have ever asked for in robbery homicide. We worked patrol together. We worked neighboring beats together in patrol, and we both went to robbery homicide together. So we were still partners during this time. And of course, he ended up being the lead investigator on this particular case. But of course, we worked good together, and we were able to solve this case from where it started to the point where we were able to make an arrest on this case. It happened a little bit faster than we initially thought it would, but as more evidence became available and things that we were able to piece back together, we figured that we were going in the right direction, and we were at a point where we had possibly developed pretty strong suspects in this case.
So take me to when you guys get there and you've got this body wrapped in a blanket, set on fire. I mean, and I know that this is going to be me being a crime junkie question. It may not be a good question, but what does that indicate to you when you see a scene like that? Like, what is your first thought about what are we dealing with here?
First of all, it's a suspicious death. There's a strong indication that it's a violent death, and that foul play is strongly involved. In this particular matter, this young man, not only had he been wrapped in a blanket, but there was other evidence there that was naked to the eye that led us to believe that he died as a result of a violent death. His hands had been tied behind his back with some type of cord, a black electrical cord. And another thing that we can later talk about, there was what appeared to be cat hair in the blanket and amongst some of the clothing of the victim at that time. So, of course, we didn't know who he was at this time, but hands tied behind his back, he's wrapped in a blanket, set on fire. Other evidence there led us to believe that we needed to identify who this individual was. And once we were able to identify who he was, that's where we started going back and backtracking and tracing the steps of this individual.
So, okay, you there you are on the scene. What's your next step after you've assessed what you have here? I assume the coroner comes and whatever. So where do you go from that point?
Well, in this particular case, in any other case, pretty much you want to identify who this individual is. Whether it's by some type of fingerprint identification, some type of facial recognition, or if they have identification on them, if they have tattoos, how can we identify who this individual is? And sometimes that process would take longer than other times because, especially back in 2007, you wouldn't immediately get a fingerprint returned right back to you within a matter of the time that you would today.
Now, was APHIS was a thing back then, though?
Right.
APHIS
was a thing, but you also have to understand that this individual was deceased at another location, had been burned somewhat. So in this case, what good would APHIS do if there were no fingerprints available due to the condition of the remains?
Sure.
But we were able to quickly identify who this young man was. And I remember we went to do a death notification. And the death notification, from my memory, was over off of Manhattan Road. We went to a residence over there, and I think it was his mother's house. Yeah. And once we made this death notification to his mother, that's when we learned a little bit more about his movements, which, of course, will later lead us to what we would consider the primary crime scene.
And that victim was Lyneil Deshun Vaughn.
Yes.
Tell us what you learned about him.
It's my understanding that he was or had some type of special needs. I'm not exactly sure what they were. I can't remember exactly what they were, but he was still able to function kind of on his own, and he was able to support himself. We later learned that he had been affiliated with an apartment complex that was not too far from where his mother lived, and from where the secondary crime scene was also located.
Okay, I think I had read that maybe he had been in a car crash or something, and that had been what disabled him.
Yes, he had been in, my understanding, a car crash, and maybe he had some disabilities.
Sure.
But again, he was still able to kind of function on his own.
How were you able to identify him? Just backtracking a little bit, because if he was set on fire, and did he have a wallet on him that you kind of were able to pull out of his pocket? Because it kind of sounds like he wasn't on fire that long.
No, he was not on fire.
So how did you identify him and get to his address?
He was not on fire that long. It wasn't where he was completely burned, or just completely burned beyond what I would consider recognition, right? But it was still badly burned. I do think that we recovered an identification during the process, and that's what led us to the residence where we responded to do the death notification.
There would have been like layers it would have had to get through.
Right.
Depending on the thickness of the blanket, I
Exactly.
guess.
That's why the identification and the information that we had did not burn. Right.
So once you've gone to his mom's house and you've talked to her, and you've kind of assessed what's going on at the apartment complex, what did that lead you to?
Well, that led us to the apartment complex. And that's what broke the case when we got to the apartment complex. We did what any homicide detectives would do. You would canvass the area. It's my understanding that I think he had an apartment over there in the same complex. We were able to speak with someone that gave us information that he had possibly been affiliated with another apartment within that complex the night before. So that's what led us to this specific apartment.
So this is an apartment where maybe he had visited friends or something.
Possible friends, acquaintances, someone he knew. But if I remember correctly, he also had an apartment also in this same complex or nearby complex also.
So it'd be safe to say neighbors.
Neighbors, acquaintances, someone he knew, right.
Sure. Well, and when you go to them, what do you find out now?
This is where it gets fast paced.
Sure.
So I remember when we got there, me and Fort Haven went, and some other detectives with us, and we knocked on the door. And when the door opened, a young man was kind of hostile a little bit, right? And basically wanted to know why were we there, what we wanted, this, that, or the other. So I remember putting my foot, I had on some black dress shoes, putting my foot down in the carpet, just inside the door as I stepped in to speak with him. And when I did that, soap and water started coming out of the carpet on my shoes. And I looked in the kitchen, and there was a microwave there. And the microwave had been turned, and the black cord was gone from the back of the microwave.
Ooh.
So, and I remember telling Ford, I said, hey, man, look, we need to get out of here. This is something we need to get a search warrant for.
Right.
So we secured the apartment, and we got a search warrant for the apartment because we believe that based on the evidence of the soap and water coming out of the carpet, based on the information that we had that he had been there the night before. And of course, the cord, just from the naked eye at that time, was a strong indication that it matched the cord that had been cut from the back of the microwave, right?
Sure.
So we felt like we were at the right place at this particular time, but we needed to make sure that we detained these individuals safely and securely, and we could secure this crime scene also. So,
Now, how does that work? Because I know, there's that whole like, we've got to come back with a warrant and then you can't really arrest them yet. What happens in that meantime when you're waiting on that warrant?
well, you detain them for questioning. They're not under arrest, but you detain them for questioning. You have somebody else that may be at the office or that can leave and go type up the warrant. But the main thing is at this time is to secure that scene, because we have a strong indication that it is a crime scene and it includes evidence and fruits that a crime has occurred at that location. So legally, that's how we were able to get a search warrant. These individuals were detained for questioning only. So we got a search warrant for the location. And let me back up. One more thing that was very interesting about this young man when he had been discovered, a sock had been stuffed in his mouth also, to indicate possible some type of suffocation, or a sock stuffed in his mouth to keep him quiet, right? So after we got the search warrant, of course, we searched the apartment. We did discover more evidence where the apartment had been cleaned or they tried to clean the apartment. We got closer to the microwave. And, of course, the cord to us, just by the naked eye, was a strong possibility that it matched. We went into one of the back bedrooms, and there was evidence there to make us believe that this individual had been assaulted in his bedroom. And, of course, we would later learn that he died as a result of blunt force trauma with some type of heavy metal object. So another thing that was very key that we discovered, there was a cat in the apartment.
Wow.
And the cat was the same color, from what we can see, as the cat hair that we discovered with the remains when they had burned. So again, we felt like we were on the right track and that we possibly had a location where the incident occurred, but did we have the right individuals detained, or was it somebody else that possibly committed the crime at this location and they're not there? But again, just based on the behavior of at least one of these individuals, we felt like, that we were pretty much on the right track as it relates to a suspect or somebody that had knowledge of the death. We were able to later develop another suspect. His name was Carl Hollins. I'm not exactly sure what happened with his case later. I don't think that he was indicted initially, but I think that somewhere along the way, it was two brothers. It was Brian Sweet and it was Craig Sweet. It was three people that we ended up arresting. We did go back and we were able to get Carl Hollins' vehicle, and it had a strong odor of gasoline in the trunk of the vehicle, along with a gas can. We were able to go back to a local service station at Northside Drive in Hanging Moss, and we were able to get video footage or video surveillance that showed them going to this location to get gas sometime throughout the night or early that morning. So all of this happened, it happened fast, and based on the information that we had and based on the evidence and based on their statements, we were able to make an arrest for capital murder. And of course, the capital murder stemmed from, we believe that he had been kidnapped. We believe that he had been kidnapped as a result of maybe some money or a small amount of marijuana, a small amount of drugs.
Sure.
Is what we believe that it stemmed from. Nothing major, not no heavy pounds of drugs or anything like that. It was very, of course, it was all uncalled for. It was all
Yeah.
tragic. But that's what we understood that it stemmed from. And, of course, like we said, one of the suspects, Sweet, think it's Brian Sweet, he's serving life in prison. And if I remember correctly, he pled guilty in the case.
Didn't his brother and the other suspect agree to testify against him if they needed to?
Yes, they did agree to testify. And eventually, I'm sure that that's what led to their charges being dismissed.
Sure. Now talk about well, first I want to ask about the cat hair
Mhm.
because we've all seen forensic files or something where they use dog hair or cat hair to lead back, and I always think it's really cute to think like, oh, the cat was the rat. But what did you use a process on that, or was it just kind of like an eye match? Like,
No.
okay,
So Ford Heyman sent the he sent the cord that was discovered tied around the victim's wrist, along with the microwave, to a lab. We were able to get a match that cord had been cut from that microwave.
good.
He sent a sample of the cat hair, along with the cat hair recovered at the scene, to the FBI crime lab. And the FBI crime lab was able to give a positive match from the cat hair. Now, of course, that did take some time, but
Sure.
on throughout the investigation, that's part of the investigation that he did. And so, this is why all of the evidence, and it's very important, when you work in these cases, to just make sure you pay attention to so much the little things that you may think don't matter, they actually matter, and they're actually visible to the naked eye. And of course, you want to do everything you can to get a possible match. And with technology, we're talking about 18 years ago, we had this
Right.
type of technology. So technology will help get you there.
So I just want to ask you too, and you're always so good at giving a really good, solid answer, but I want your gut reaction when your foot landed in that soapy water.
Oh, shit.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow. Yeah.
It was almost like a domino effect after that.
That's exactly what I said. And I remember I told Hannah, hey, man, we need to step out. I said, yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like that's not something you forget. Like that, you have aha moments in any investigation. I mean, I think as a reporter, I have them too. But
Right.
that's one of those ones that just all of a sudden, like, I bet you will never forget that very moment.
I would never forget that moment because like I said, we didn't have much, but we were just following the evidence. We're not really following the evidence, but just following the steps of this individual that we believed that he had been taken the night before, the early morning hours. And based on just random information that we were given, that's what led us to this particular location, right? So, and as a homicide detective and someone that was as passionate about homicide as I was, and Ford Heyman and some of these other guys we worked with in the unit back then, it was kind of hard to fool us. I'll just be honest with you.
Yeah.
We didn't let a lot get by. It was hard. And, for us to get that type of break at that particular time, it showed that not only our knowledge and our expertise at the time, but we have been trained good, and that we pay close attention to things that matter. So that's how we got there.
So now I know Ford as a police chief.
That's
He's the
right.
chief at Clinton Police Department. I also knew him as an assistant police chief, but I never knew him as a detective. So tell me a little bit about him and his style. He's so laid back in real life. Now he is.
Yeah.
What was it like back then?
He's the same person, fun to be around, straight into the point, laid back. And he was my partner for many years in Homicide. When we first got to Homicide, we worked the night shift. We worked the evening shift. I think we worked 2 to 10 or 3 to 11 or something. So we spent a lot of time together. And even before then, we spent a lot of time together because we worked the same shift in the precinct, and we were friends. I have some newspaper clippings and articles of me and Ford in the newspaper and us doing some other work together. So just all around great guy, very great to work with. And again, when you talk about partners, this is the type of partner that you would want to have, especially dealing with the cases that we dealt with. If one misses, the other would pick it up. I trusted him and he trusted me.
Yeah.
So, that made it a whole lot better for us. I remember we was on the evening shift in Homicide, and our office was in the Standard Life building back then. Yeah. And we used to watch, what is the TV show? NYPD Blue.
Yeah.
We used to sit in the office and watch NYPD Blue sometimes. And of course, back then, young homicide detectives, crime TV, we were all interested in that and everything that was going on in the series. And then, of course, we were on call out together. So, on the weekends, we get called out. He was my partner. If something happened overnight and we get called out, he was my partner. So we worked many, many cases together, not just homicides, but we worked other robberies and other cases together.
I think that's something that people who have never had to have a partner or have somebody they worked closely with, you see it on cop shows. I mean, obviously, I can watch Blue Bloods and understand that, Danny Reagan and Maria Baez are partners and they need each other and all that. But when I was at the Clarion Ledger, there was another girl that worked crime with me. Her name was Sarah Fowler. And Sarah and I operated like that sometimes. It was very much, what I didn't get, she did,
Right.
and vice versa. And we were able to even down to I'm not good with animal cruelty stories.
Yeah.
And she wasn't good with kid cruelty stories. So
Right.
we were able to
Right.
back each other like that.
Right.
So that's nothing. I mean, it's a little bit like what you're talking about.
It's
But
still, it's a partnership, and it's someone that you trust.
yeah,
And y'all can flow off of each other's energy.
right.
Y'all can operate off of each other's energy, and it's not anything where it's negative energy there. So, yeah.
So talk about now, you guys. That's a partnership that lasts for life when you have done those kind of things together.
Mm-hmm.
It takes something major to bust that up. So what does it mean now that you're the sheriff of Hinds County and he is the Clinton police chief? How does that dynamic carry over?
Well, we're still partners. We're still partners. We're just in different departments, but, we're still partners. And, we communicate from time to time, especially when it's something work-related. But, however, when we do communicate, it's always a pleasant conversation. And he reminds me that he's still the old Fort Heyman that I knew and that I was partners with. And I'm sure it's the same, for me. So it was good to see him rise through the ranks and be in a position that he's in Clinton. And again, even though we're in different agencies, we're still partners. We still have a partnership between the Jackson Police Department, Hinds County Sheriff's Office, Clinton Police Department. Our SWAT teams are still merged together. So, there's still a lot of communication there. I saw him out on the scene recently. He came out to a scene in Jackson, and I got a chance to see him, speak with him there.
Yeah. So now what I love right now, and this is one of the things I really wanted to go over with you, is that there are so many leaders in the metro area right now, whether they're chiefs, sheriffs, assistant chiefs, whatever, that came from this era at JPD. Mm-hmm. So, you've got Anthony Moore at Terry. You've got, Bubba Thompson was at Brandon. You've got this whole bunch of you guys. Mm-hmm. Talk to me. So on a daily basis, how many of the old guard, not the old OG guys, but of your class are you dealing with on a daily basis?
Well, not necessarily class, but let me say this.
Class
You talk about Charlie Smith.
Yeah.
So at one point, me, Fort Heyman, Bubba Thompson, he was an old dog then. He was a vet by the time we got started.
Right.
Me, Fort Heyman, Bubba Thompson, we were all on Charlie Smith's shift. And Corliss Harris,
Yes.
that's the chief of police at Jackson Public Schools.
Sure.
He was on our shift then too. So we were all Charlie Smith products
Right.
from back then. So we worked the streets together. When Ford graduated the academy, the class before I did, but we came on just a few months apart. So we worked patrol together, and we got a chance to work alongside some really, really good men and women.
While on the force, I learned that an officer is only as good as his team and the gear that he carries. Ultimately, that is what helped me make the decision to supply and support the demands that the officers need.
From uniforms to upfitting service vehicles, our family strives to connect people with the resources they need. From enforcing the law, fighting fires, or simply protecting the ones they love. At the Southern Connection Police Supplies, our family is here for yours. Stop by and see for yourself.
Juan Cloy,
Yes.
that just retired, he was a part of that era. Juan had moved on to investigations, moved on to a task force position too, if I remember correctly. But at one point he was still helping us in robbery homicide also. So we got a chance to work with him. And, just Derek Jordan.
Yeah.
Derek Jordan was at the precinct with us back then. Derek Jordan was in homicide. He was there after me and Ford were there, but he came to homicide, and he later became the sergeant in the homicide division. And, he moved on to be to other positions. He
He's
was
at
assistant
DPS
chief
now,
at Capitol Police. Now he's a director of minimum standards. Is it not minimum standards? Maybe it is minimum
Yeah,
standards.
minimum standards.
I
yeah.
can't keep up with our DPS has so many different divisions.
That is
I
true.
can't keep up with all of them right now. But he's at DPS. So these are guys that we worked alongside
Sure.
for many, many years.
Well, and I think to me, one of the reasons that I always like to have this conversation is because, JPD's had some rocky years recently, and a lot of it had to do with, leadership on up the, I mean, let's just go ahead and say there was a lot of possible alleged interference from the mayor's office in what was going on at JPD. And that hurt morale, and it hurt the numbers, and it hurt the reputation. And as someone who has loved JPD, I've told you before, you guys were my guys. Like, I mean, I was starstruck by y'all, when I was a baby reporter at the Clarion Ledger. So just to be able to talk about the professionalism and the knowledge and the experience that JPD has brought into our state.
That's right.
You've even got, all the way up to Oxford. Sheridan Maiden just retired. And, you've got it all over the state where we can see the print that JPD has left on Mississippi policing.
That's right. And when me and Ford first went to homicide, Joe Wade was actually the sergeant in homicide. He actually selected me and Heyman based on the competitive process to be in that position. We had to go through interview board, interview panel, and all of that. But he actually selected me and Heyman to come to the robbery homicide division. So, we have some deep roots and deep ties that started in that unit. And I'll never forget, somebody told me when I first went to robbery homicide, like I say, I was young. I think I was 25, 26. I had been a police officer since I was 22. And they said that if you work in robbery homicide, you can work anywhere in this police department. And believe me, they were absolutely right.
Oh, yeah.
Because you would be exposed to so much surrounded the crimes that we worked in robbery homicide. Some of it composed internal issues also, where we found that some of our own people that worked at the police department back then had been involved in criminal activity stemming from investigations that we worked in homicide. So, we got a well-rounded, I would say, educational course.
Yeah.
Just by being in that unit and being exposed to the criminal justice system, how the criminal justice system operates. you know, and these are things I still remember today. And my passion is still homicide. It's still, that's one of my passions, you know, being able to solve it, being able to be that voice. You know, I try not to get involved as much, you know, but sometimes it's a little bit hard not to, especially since I've been back with the police department, you know, during this time, and I've been exposed to more of it, even though it's on a steady decline, but I've still been exposed, and it kind of bring back some of the memories that I had when I was there. So what do I want to do? I want to make sure that I can lend my expertise to help some of the other ones that are there, some of the questions that I have, you know, because the basics haven't changed. The basics of an investigation will always remain the same. Are we doing the basics? You know, you have technology that's there. You have cameras, you have body cameras, you have so much more today than we had years ago to help us solve crime. You know, we were at the grassroots back then. You know,
You had to go knock on doors.
we had to
and
go
all
knock
kinds of
on
stuff.
doors. Now you look across the street, it's a Ring doorbell camera there, right? And the only thing you need is that footage off of that Ring doorbell camera. So you have the police department have different cameras up throughout the city. So much more is technology driven today versus what it was years ago. You know, years ago you went and knocked on doors. You had a flashlight, you had your notepad in your hand, and that's how you worked. You know.
What would you say is the technology that has made the biggest difference in policing since you started as a detective in homicide?
What's what now?
Which piece of technology do you feel like has made the biggest difference? I mean, like, would it be the prevalence of cameras everywhere, or would it be something to do with DNA or?
DNA was prevalent back then, of course. Of course, it has gotten better, you know, over the years, of course. But technology today, just what you would see at a crime scene would definitely be your surveillance cameras, some of your Ring doorbell cameras, some of your other stationary cameras. That's something that you can depend on right there at that moment. Versus DNA, sometimes that takes a process and a while for it to return, even though it's faster today than it was years ago, but there's still a process. With that camera, you can just go and you can record whatever footage is there while you are there, you know, and that can help you solve your crime, or lead you in the right direction at that point.
Right. So, Nicole, I have to tell you, the sheriff came and spoke at one of my PIO classes.
Nice.
And I've already used the line on my other podcast that I'm on, Don't Call It a Comeback. But and they didn't know what I was talking about. But when he walked in, he was wearing his JPD uniform. And it was just like this whole feeling of like, oh my gosh, we've come full circle. You know, like this, you know, that way that you do when your favorite football player comes back and plays for their team, or, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you that, because to me it was like, I mean, you know how I fangirl over all that.
I love it. Do you how do you decide which uniform to wear every day?
It just kind of depends on what's going on daily.
Okay.
You know, sometimes I have to attend events that's specifically JPD oriented. Sometimes I have to do the same for the sheriff's office. So it just kind of depends on what's on my calendar as to what I will wear. Somebody asked me, they said that, but did you pull your old uniforms out of your closet? I said, hell no. There's no way I could wear my same uniforms I wore 5 years ago.
Gonna be popping off.
I'll be busted out of it. But no. But, you know, let me say this. Going back and being able to reunite with some of the people at the Jackson Police Department has been one of the greatest honors of my career outside of being elected sheriff.
Sure.
People have asked me, how do you do it? Do you get stressed? And I tell them, no, it's about time management and it's about balancing things. And it's okay if you can't do it today, it can wait until tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to do it, because something can happen in between that time that may attract your immediate attention. And I have to give kudos to the men and women of both the Hinds County Sheriff's Office and the Jackson Police Department, because they are the ones that's ultimately responsible for the day-to-day operations of each respective department. So, they run the operation, they run the show, and I'm there as the administrator. I'm there to make sure that they have the things that they need to be able to operate. I'm there to address the city council. I'm there to address the board of supervisors and to attend public events and things that we feel will benefit both departments. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And, even though I'm not a candidate and I made it perfectly clear that I'm not, don't ever think that when it's my time to separate again from the police department that I won't have feelings about it, because I will, because I have grown accustomed to being there and being involved with the day-to-day operations. But at the same time, the Jackson Police Department deserves someone that can be there dedicated and give that department 100% without any outside, I wouldn't say distractions, but any outside obligations. Let's use that word, obligations. And of course, I still have obligations. I feel that I could do it, but at the same time, and the money is good for my retirement, but it's not about money. It's more about peace of mind.
Yeah.
I also have a family, and I want to be able to still enjoy some of the things that I would like to do and give somebody else that opportunity and that chance, because there are so many people out there that's deserving of it, whether a chief is selected from someone internally or externally. That's an opportunity for somebody, and it's the same thing for us, even in the position that I'm in as sheriff. When it's my time to go, I know that it's my time. Give somebody else that opportunity, but at the same time, while you're doing these things, as you grow and as you matriculate, make sure that you are helping to groom other people, that you're grooming future leaders. You're doing yourself an injustice if you're only thinking about yourself along the way. You want other people to come behind you. My talent was recognized when I was a younger police officer. Don't you think that I haven't recognized some of these same abilities in other people, right? And when you're able to identify, you're able to do these things, you're able to mentor them, you're able to help them, and you want to see them do well also. So that's what it's about when it comes to these leadership positions. Have I had to make some extremely hard decisions since I've been back with the police department? Yes, I have. But, let's be honest about it. I wouldn't be fulfilling my duty as a police chief. I wouldn't be fulfilling my commitment to the mayor and the city of Jackson if I was in a position where I couldn't or I wouldn't make some of the decisions that I've had to make, right? And I don't want to leave these decisions to somebody else to make. When it's time for that transfer of administration between the Jackson Police Department and the chief, I want it to be a clean slate. I want it to be, this is what I have done. This is where we are. Nah, this your baby.
Right.
You got it from here.
Yeah.
But, but not to go back, and they have to go back and address, things that I possibly should have addressed or some of the decisions I should have made.
Sure. I love it when someone that I'm interviewing answers all the questions that I had.
Right.
Because it was going to be, how did it feel to get to take the helm at JPD? And then it was going to be, Lee Vance was so, he groomed you. He took you from, he took you with him,
That's right.
and
That's
it
right.
was like there was no question that Lee had big plans for you.
Yeah.
So you answered my question, are you doing that for others?
Yes, ma'am.
And that, so there's all that.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I think you just have that leadership ability that is so necessary in a position, whether it's in a sheriff's office or in a police department. I think that a lot of people could look up to you, not just in Mississippi, but all over the country, and say, and my question was, that must be stressful. And you already answered that too. And you're like, man, this is just what I got to do.
Yeah, it
And I'm
is.
like, I can't imagine, because I stress out every day for my
but anything
stupid
have its moments, right? Don't get me wrong. You have your ups and you have your downs, but letting it consume me No. To the point where I can't function, away from each department. No, don't take it home with you. Like we said, if it's something that can wait, it's okay for it to wait. There are times I get home in the evening at 4 or 5 o'clock, and guess what? My phone don't ring. I don't get a text message. I don't hear from nobody until the next morning, and I'm perfectly okay with that because I'm not going to be sitting there with a phone in my hand trying to call and see what somebody else is doing, right? Because I trust the work that they're doing, right?
Well, and I was going to say, doesn't that indicate that you've got a command staff that can handle things if you're not there?
There's people that's in place to be able to handle things and address it. If they need me, they'll call me. If they don't, I'm not going to bother them, right? So that's how I operate, and I tell, just like with the police department, some of the leadership that's there, I recognize it. I've been around some of these guys. I feel like some of them should apply, or hopefully they have applied for the chief's position, because right now it's an open and transparent process. I'm not involved at all. I won't get involved, and I don't want to be involved. I want it to be a process that's totally away from me, and that I won't have any type of distraction in the process. So I've encouraged some of them um, that they should apply or they should have applied, and that's pretty much it. But I can't talk about, and I won't get into what the process is or what they need to do, because I believe that everybody should have a fair opportunity at the position.
Absolutely. Well, and so to kind of bring it full circle to Lyneil Vaughn, one thing that I thought with some of the decisions that you've had to make, some that have been public and some that have not, you came in with the authority to be able to do that. You weren't just like some guy that they stuck up there or some name that nobody had heard. People knew because you had been around as long as you had. And you had dealt with these cases. Most people don't live their lives like you're the kind of guy that they make a crime TV show about.
Yeah, I've been on a few.
Yeah. So what, I mean, when it comes down to it, like you have lived this true crime dream that our listeners and that people all over the country every day, I mean, it's a huge industry.
That's right.
What does it mean to you to know that you've actually lived what a lot of people would say is like their dream?
I have lived my real life. I have lived what other people see on television,
Yeah.
and that intrigues them so much when it comes to crime, violent crimes. I've lived it in real life.
And it hasn't burned you out.
It has not burned me out, right? But I have definitely lived it. Has it consumed me at times? Yes. I would be lying if I sat here and said that it has not or did not consume me at times, because of course we're still human. We still have hearts. We don't operate off oil and water. We bleed just like everybody else, right? And we still have these same feelings and emotions that people have. So yes, it has been consuming at times. It's been consuming, sometimes when you deal with death, just as in general. And you have to understand that sometimes we dealt with death sometime on a daily basis, sometimes on a weekly, well, we say weekly, but sometimes on a daily basis. I've worked hundreds and hundreds of crime scenes and violent crimes and murder investigations, during my career while I was there. And of course, some cases touched you a little bit more than some of the other cases. And that's perfectly okay, because every scenario is not the same. Every victim will not be the same. But you still had one job, and your job, or the job of you and your partner and or your team, is to make sure that you bring closure to these families and that you're able to answer some of the questions that they may have. And not only that, but you're able to fluidly see that investigation. You adopt that case to the point where they plea and go to prison, or they get convicted in prison. And you have to put your all into that, because you have to be, it's not about a short-term obligation. It's not about a short-term dedication. It's for long-term, because everything that you're doing at that point, is just short term, but it may slow down, but it doesn't end there. You want to make sure that you see it all the way through, and still today, I still see some victims from some of the crimes that I worked. I still communicate at times with some of the families of some of the homicides that I worked. I see people that I have put in prison and sent to prison for many of years. I've been thanked by some of the people that I sent to prison for saving their life and changing their life. So, it's not always about the victim, but the majority of the time it is. I'm a person of second chance. I believe in second chances. I've been given chances, and I believe that second chances should be afforded to some people. But then you have some people that absolutely do not deserve to be in the same society as us again, and that's perfectly okay. But you need to do and make sure that you're doing what's needed to make sure that they are not in society again. And just like this particular case that we're speaking about here with this young man that was killed, that individual does not deserve to be in society again. Ford Heyman made sure that he followed that case and he got that case to where it needed to be, where this individual would be in prison for the rest of their life.
Nicole, closing thoughts?
Every time you talk, it's like mesmerizing to listen to Tyree talk.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there was an emergency, all I would need to do is just call you up and you can just tell me it's okay. And I'd be like, all right, great. And we continue.
And
it's always an honor to speak to you and hear your stories and just kind of hear your insights on things, because as somebody who's not in the police world or a first responder or anything like that, you hear from the outside, you do hear a lot about JPD and Hinds County and blah, blah, blah. And then I get to talk to you and I'm like, man, like this is solid. This is what it's supposed to be. And you care and you have the integrity and you have the knowledge and you want people to do well. And I think that a lot of people need to hear that. So I'm just really grateful that you're willing to spend your time here with us, even though you have 1,000 million other things to do. And, up until we're all, I always say I'm busy, but then I see Tyree and I'm like, man, it's good. We're we're good.
Hey, and look, from a podcast perspective, from a producer's side, your voice, it's like this sexy radio voice. I'm just sitting here like, oh my God, my job is so easy right now.
We don't have to adjust the microphone at all.
Right. Well, and you said that about being able to call him and just let him say it's okay, and it's okay. I've had that experience. There was a crime scene, oh gosh, it has to be 12, 13 years ago now, and I got out there and it was wild. There had been a homicide, and I think the coroner was there, but there were no cops, or not a lot of cops there. It was like, it was dark, like no street lights. And I got there, and the neighborhood was wild. Everyone was freaking out. And I rolled up in there just myself, all by myself with my camera or whatever. I don't even think I had a camera. And I just remember being like, I don't know any of these people. And some guy had come up to me and started talking crazy, like not even talking anything that made sense. And then I looked through the crowd and I saw Tyree. And he walks over to me and he's like, hey, I'm going to be over here in a minute, and I was like, oh, thank God. And there's so many, cases that I've called and like, hey, what's going on? But I'll never forget that scene. And I can't remember where it was. It was on the outskirts of South Jackson, though.
I can't remember.
I know it was.
It's been a many of them.
Yeah, but that was the one where I just looked over there. I was the only reporter there yet, and I saw Tyree, and I was like, everything's going to be fine.
Zach Smith said he always enjoyed being able to listen to you and Dad talk back in the day. He never said a word. He just listened.
Oh, Zach. Tennessee volunteer, Zach.
And I'm friends with Zach, even though I'm a Vanderbilt fan. So.
Yes, indeed.
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff, any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you all for having me. It's good to come and sit down and have these conversations with you. And I wish you all much more success with your production. And I'm sure there are some more people out there that can share some pretty good stories with you. Sometimes us as cops, we sit around and tell our stories. We may be off work. We may sit around and drink a few beers and hang out and tell some of our stories that's not suitable for a podcast, right?
And
no
those are my
rules.
favorite kind of nights, is getting to hear it unfiltered.
There you
know?
go. They will be completely unfiltered. But and some of them may include a few lies too, okay?
Fish stories.
Right. But what my story is here does not include any beer drinking.
Right.
And there are no lies being told.
Fair.
There you
So,
go.
we keep it fair,
Yeah.
right? So it's just good to be here and to be able, to do something different, like I always say, not having to report some devastating news, some bad news. And, fortunately, we have not been in that position today as much as we've been in the past. So that goes to show that things are evolving, things are changing. And we want to keep making sure that we still have that trajectory, that we're going in that direction. And again, my job is my job, okay? I'm in a position. But let's not ever forget about those men and women that's out there on the front lines.
Absolutely.
Day to day, all right? They are the backbone of any department. I can come in and sit in here and tell y'all all the stories that I need to tell you, but they are the ones that's responsible for the success of any police department. And they should always be commended for the job that they do. So I end by saying that. I ask the audience and everybody, pray for them.
Amen.
As I always say, pray for their families. It takes a selfless family to lend their loved one to public service, no matter what role that they're in. Because everything that your family member have to absorb, that family have to absorb that right along with them. So pray for these people and pray for their families.
Absolutely. Well, Sheriff, thank you for joining us.
All right.
We really appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching. And if you're listening on one of the podcasts, thank you for joining us that way. We have, let me let you do the merch
I haven't
spiel.
done it in a while.
Go for it.
If you would like to follow us, you can follow us on any of you can listen on any of your favorite platforms. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I think that's all the socials. If you'd like to buy some merch, we have a link tree in the bio of all of our socials. And shout out to Daniel Anderson with Audio Alchemy Productions for a wonderful podcast. We get lots of compliments, so he does a great job. If you're looking for a podcast, hit him up. And we are always looking for sponsors. So if you're interested in being part of our family, just reach out to me, Therese, or you can send us an email at investigationhomicide@gmail.com. We hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. Stay safe driving out there. The first Thursday after daylight savings times. Nobody likes that. It's already dark outside. I can see it on the cameras. So thank you again, Sheriff Chief Tyree Jones. We will see you again next week on Investigation Homicide.
That's why I let her do it.